This is the Standing in the Gaps News Deep Dive, and we are apolitical.
Not left.
Not right.
Just getting the truth.
Today we're diving into a really fascinating topic, maybe even a little unsettling, to be honest with you. It's all about America's consumer habits.
Oh, yeah. This is a big one.
Yeah, and, you ask us to really take a look at this critical piece of our economy. How does it work? How do we spend? How much debt do we have? And we found some audio on this, and it's pretty wild, like just how dominant American consumers are around the world.
It's mind-blowing, the scale of it.
It is. It really is. I mean, we're going to unpack all this, the spending, the debt, and like even the history of all this. How did we get here?
Right, because it wasn't always this way.
Right, exactly. So our mission, let's break down these key insights and try to understand how the U.S. became this consumer-driven nation. Like, what are the consequences?
Yeah. What are the pros and cons?
Exactly. And without boring you with tons of data, I mean, you brought this to us, so you clearly want a clearer picture of, a complicated issue, right?
Definitely.
So we're here to guide you through what we think are the most important parts.
Okay to add insult to injury. Since we're talking about being consumers, if you're going to buy something, why not buy something from our store? Welcome to the Standing in the Gaps merch store, the official store of the Standing in the Gaps podcast, where we explore the social, economic, and political issues of today through a biblical lens. Here's what we've got for you. T-shirts that help you make a bold statement everywhere you go. Whether you're standing up for truth or sparking conversations, our shirts reflect the spirit of standing in the gap. Need fuel for those long, thoughtful mornings or deep dive discussions? We've got premium coffee, roasted to perfection, along with sturdy mugs designed to hold that truth-fueled brew. Want to represent your values wherever life takes you? Grab one of our stylish hats to keep you covered, literally and figuratively. And don't miss our inspirational prints that you can frame and hang up at home or in your office, a daily reminder to stand firm in faith. But that's not all. From accessories to gifts, we've got a variety of items that let you stand out while standing strong for what you believe in. Every purchase supports the mission of Standing in the Gaps, helping us continue bringing you insightful content, meaningful conversations, and the courage to face the tough topics. So what are you waiting for? Visit Standing in the Gaps merch store today. Link is in the description. Grab some gear, enjoy some great coffee, and help us keep bridging the gap in today's world. Together, let's stand for truth. Together, let's stand in the gap.
Let's jump right in.
Yeah, let's go. What really stood out to me, right away, was just the size of American consumption. It's huge. It's front and center in the audio we found.
Oh, yeah. It's the first thing they hit you with. The numbers are just staggering.
They are. For example, okay, so American consumer spending is more than three times that of China.
Wow.
Which is the next biggest consumer market in the world.
That is wild. Way less people spending way more money.
Way less. China has a much bigger population, way more people. Yet we're out here spending 3 times as much.
That's insane.
And if you're finding this as mind-blowing as we are, hit that like button and subscribe, because it gets even wilder.
Oh, yeah. Buckle up. Because the U.S. accounts for about a third of all consumer spending in the entire world.
Globally, wow.
Worldwide. And we only have 4% of the global population?
It's a huge imbalance, right?
Huge.
And it's not a small part of our economy either. We're talking consumer spending is 69%, a full 69% of the entire U.S. economy.
69%. Wow.
Yeah, and you compare that to China, right? 38%. The EU, the entire European Union, 51%.
So we're really leading the pack here.
We are. It's all about buying stuff. That's what drives our entire economic engine.
Fascinator.
So, okay, let's dig a little deeper here. What, historically, how did we get here? What happened?
Well, the audio really points to World War II. After World War II, things really changed.
Okay, so after the war.
Yeah, America had all these factories, right? Built up during the war and tons of workers. So when the war ended, it was what do we do with all this?
Right, because we can't just stop everything.
Exactly. So the government's hey, everyone, let's buy stuff.
Right, let's get this economy rolling. And they were building on ideas from the New Deal, right?
Yeah, exactly. Keep people employed, keep the factories humming.
Right. And it's interesting because it wasn't just about having the products available. It was about making people want them. Like desire them.
Oh, yeah. And that's where advertising went into overdrive. Like, think Mad Men, you know?
Right, right, right.
Big persuasive campaigns.
And it's funny because the audio actually talks about how, people who worked in like war propaganda, they took those skills and shifted to advertising. It's pretty wild.
Wow. From selling war bonds to selling cars and toasters?
Exactly, yeah. And alongside all this, like, we see a physical shift in the country too, right? Shopping centers start popping up everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Like everywhere. In 1946, there were only like 8 enclosed shopping malls in the whole country.
8.
8.
That's it.
That's it by the early 60s. Over 4,000.
Wow. That's insane growth.
It's massive. Like, these places became the center of this new consumer culture.
Like cathedrals of consumerism.
Exactly.
And the audio makes a good point, like contrasting this with Europe and Asia, right? After the war, they were rebuilding, essential stuff.
Right, infrastructure.
Exactly. They didn't have this like pressure to find a place for all this production.
Right, different priorities.
Totally. And this is really important because, America, we kind of got a head start building this consumer economy. And that has led to some interesting consequences for us today, would you say?
Absolutely. And some pretty paradoxical situations, too.
Yeah, we've got like cheap luxuries, but really expensive essentials, right?
Exactly. And if you're finding this historical context interesting, make sure to like and subscribe to keep up with all our deep dives.
Yes, please do. So, okay, talk about that a little bit more. What do you mean, cheap luxuries, expensive essentials? What's going on there?
Okay, so globalization and just better production methods have made a lot of things way cheaper than they were back in the 60s, relatively speaking.
Right, like adjusted for inflation, yeah.
Exactly, and the audio gives some great examples, like a plane ticket from New York to Europe. Back then, that would have been like $6,000 in today's money.
$6,000.
A fridge, $4,000. A color TV, almost $9,000.
Wow.
A microwave, $5,000. Even furniture costs way more, like what you'd put down on a house today. It's crazy.
So, like, these things were really luxury items.
Oh, yeah, totally out of reach for most people. But now, you can get similar stuff, often even better, for a fraction of your income.
Right. Amazing.
But here's the catch.
Uh-oh.
Essential things, the basics, like housing, transportation, they've gotten way more expensive.
Way more expensive. I mean, housing's a huge issue right now. It's like 80% of households are considered housing burdened.
Housing burden? What does that even mean?
Basically, they spend more than 30% of their income on just rent or a mortgage.
Oof, that's got to be tough.
Yeah, how do people manage, right? I mean, that's such a big chunk of your paycheck.
It is, and tell us about it. We want to hear from you. Does this resonate? Share your thoughts in the comments below.
We want to hear from you.
And if you're digging our content and want to support what we're doing, please think about donating to our GoFundMe campaign. Your contribution will help us upgrade our equipment, make our videos even better, and reach more people.
So, and then on top of that, we've got this whole car-centric thing going on, right?
Oh, yeah, the post-war obsession with cars.
Yeah. The audio points out how, like, the auto industry, they really push for this kind of development.
Suburbs, highways, everything spread out.
Exactly. So now you basically need a car to get around in most of the U.S. It's not really optional.
Right, it's a necessity.
And that's another huge cost, especially if you're, not making a lot of money.
Absolutely. And then there's healthcare, which is, a whole other issue in America.
Uniquely American problem.
Yeah, costs a ton, but we don't necessarily get better results for it.
It's true. So it's like, you can maybe afford a new phone or a gadget, but can you actually afford a place to live or a way to get to work or to, take care of your health? It's kind of messed up.
Yeah, the priorities are a little skewed, and you might be feeling this yourself, like struggling with rent, trying to save for a down payment, or those healthcare bills just keep piling up.
It's tough out there, and it all leads to this big reliance on debt, right? Like that's how people are making ends meet.
That's right, and the audio gets into some pretty worrying data about that.
Yeah, like savings rates are the lowest they've ever been. And risky consumer lending has passed $1 trillion. And that's not even counting, car loans or mortgages or all those buy now, pay later things.
It's a lot of debt. And what's really striking is that the poorest 20% of households, they're actually spending more than they earn.
More than they earn, so they're in the red every year.
Yeah, they have to either borrow money or dip into whatever little savings they might have. It's a tough cycle to break.
It is. And then the audio makes this kind of uncomfortable point about how this might actually be good for employers.
Good for employers? How so?
Well, they're saying that workers who have a lot of debt, they're less likely to, quit their jobs.
Ah, I see. They're got us stuck, right?
Yeah, they might work more overtime. They might not, ask for better pay or benefits. They can't afford to rock the boat.
Right. They need that steady paycheck no matter what.
Exactly. And then you throw in all these subscription services.
Oh, yeah, the subscription economy. It's
It's
everywhere.
everywhere. And it's interesting because you don't really own the stuff you're quote unquote consuming, right?
It's just access, temporary access.
Exactly. So it makes it harder to cut back if you need to.
Yeah, if you lose your job or something, you're still on the hook for all those payments. It's tricky.
It is. So it's complicated. Like, can we just fix this by buying less stuff?
Right, that's the big question. And if you're enjoying this analysis, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives.
Absolutely. Please do. So, yeah, I mean, personally, maybe we could all try to buy less, especially unnecessary stuff or cheap imports, right? But the audio points out that if everyone in America suddenly started spending a lot less, it could really hurt the economy.
Right, it's a tricky balance.
Yeah. And we have to remember, like, America's consumer market, it's huge. Like, it gives us leverage in the world. A lot of big companies are based here because they want to sell to us.
Right, they've built their empires on American consumers.
Exactly. And a lot of countries, they want access to our market.
It's a valuable thing.
It is. But here's the thing, like, our economic growth, it's become really reliant on all this spending. And a lot of it is, fueled by debt.
Right, we've talked about that.
Yeah. And the audio also points out that, like, a lot of the non-essential spending, it comes from the top 10% of earners.
So if those folks start tightening their belts, it could have a ripple effect.
Exactly. And to make things even more complicated, like, there are fewer and fewer suppliers in a lot of industries.
So it's not as simple as just choosing to buy from a different company because there might not be many options.
Right. It's all very interconnected. So to summarize, I guess, we've seen how America became this dominant consumer force because of what happened after World War II.
Right, that's policies really set the stage.
Yeah. And now we're in this situation where, we can get cheap gadgets, but we can't afford the basics. And a lot of people are in debt.
It's a complex picture.
It is, and it leaves us with a lot to think about. Like, what can we do as individuals, and what needs to change on a larger scale?
Right, like what small changes can we make in our own lives and what bigger systemic shifts are needed? It's a question for all of us.
It is, and thank you for, joining us on this deep dive. It's an important topic. And if you found this valuable and you want to help us reach more people and, maybe get some better equipment, like webcams, studio microphones, stuff like that, please consider supporting our GoFundMe campaign.
Yeah, any contribution helps.
It really does. It helps us, keep bringing you this kind of in-depth analysis, the truth without the political spin.
That's our goal.
It is. So thank you for listening.
And for your support.
And we'll see you on the next deep dive.
See you then.